I'm pretty sure this is actively bad lighting, and there's not a lot I can do about it because it's just the sun. I tried to close the blinds and it actually made it worse because there's this tiny little sliver of just bright light that comes through anyway. Hoping it's moody. That's what I'm going for. Like, ooh, it's a vibe. I'm trying to grow a mustache, so you have to deal with that for this whole video. And I'm doing something completely different from what I normally do. So I've got a great feeling about this video. Hey, what's up? My name is John Bonjour. I'm an artist and a film enthusiast. I have drawn some art all the time. My whole life is drawing art. Today, I'm not really enthusing about film though. It's going to be a completely different video. I want to talk about comic books. Now, this should not be surprising to most of you because you've seen anything I do. I love comic books. They are so important to me. I love the big two, Marvel, DC. I like the lower level, Image, Dark Horse, all that. Hellboy is my favorite comic book of all time. And I love independent comic books. If you don't already know, I am the writer and artist and publisher and marketing agent or Edge of Bordertown, my comic. It is free on my site right now, johnbonart.com. It's always going to be free. Please read it. I would really appreciate some more eyes on it, as always. But this video came about because recently I've been getting some more eyes on Edge of Bordertown. I've been marketing it more, putting it out there. People are reading it. And that's huge. That makes me feel incredible. It is an indescribable feeling, and it's been almost a decade of work to get to this point where there's any traction whatsoever. So it's crazy. It's an incredible thing, and I've been getting some people reaching out and asking me, how do you make your first comic book? How do you get into comics? Which is almost comical that they would come to me for that, because like I said, I've been working in comics for a full decade, not professionally, and they are not, most of them, good. Most of them are quite bad. So it's weird to think that I'm putting something out that makes people think that they might actually want to listen to me for some reason. It's going to sound like I'm bragging through a lot of this video. And in a way, I kind of am because I'm proud of the work that I've done, but I'm really not. I want to be clear about that. I am not coming to this video with the expectation that I am somebody who should be listened to necessarily. I just know that I have a lot of experience making comics and being a part of the independent comic scene. And I think that I have some things that I might be able to share, but I'm not trying to, this isn't a how-to guide on success. I don't think I would be well-equipped to do that. But it is like a how to start comic books, how to get into it. So I'm dividing it into three categories. We're going to talk to writers first, then artists, and then after that, I'm going to talk about publication, getting it out there, marketing, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be way more to say than what I am saying about this, so if you're interested, let me know, and I can make some sort of segmented videos that go in deeper. For now, we're just covering the bases of how to start comic books, so let's start with writers. If you are a writer and you want to write comic books and you're not sure where to start, learn how to write comic books. And that sounds so obvious. I could say the same thing about artists and anybody. But there are so many rules to writing comic books. And at first, that was really scary. A paintbrush just fell and it scared the shit out of me. What I was saying, there are rules to writing comic books, and there is a reason that those rules exist. They are important. It's going to feel kind of overwhelming and a little bit constricting at first because you just want to write comics. You just want to write the thing that's made, and it looks so easy to write because it's just dialogue, right? It's not just dialogue. There are so many rules, and if you're coming from an artist's perspective, those rules are make or break, 100%. The number of times I've gotten a script that has a panel that has 3 or 4 different actions from a character, and it's like, I see why you wanted to go from here to here, but you can't do that. You need to break the action into panels. You just can't have multiple actions per panel for a character. It just doesn't work. It's impossible to draw. There are exceptions to that. Don't be like that. Don't be that person. It's just one of many rules and guidelines that are kind of pivotal to making a successful and readable comic book. So learn the rules. If you can, take a class. I got the opportunity to learn from Ron Fortier. He's an incredible comics writer. He's been working professionally for a really long time, and he's just a wonderful dude. But I learned so much from that class that I have taken with me for the rest of my time making comics up to now, and it really was a pivotal thing for me. And at the time, I didn't totally think I was going to write comic books. I just kind of wanted to learn more about it, and it's meant the world to me. So if you can, take a course on it. If not, YouTube is amazing. That's how I learned to draw, is YouTube. Just watching a bunch of Jim Lee videos and a bunch of Ryan Ottley videos and hundreds of other artists. People make really comprehensive content, and I highly recommend just going through and absorbing as much of that information as you possibly can. Another huge piece of advice that I have for writers is just write what you want to read. You know, I've seen so many comics and scripts and independent stuff that clearly is just trying to get at something that's popular. It's trying to just ambulance chase their way to success. And it's just anytime someone makes something exclusively for the purposes of money without any personal involvement at all, it just kind of reeks of it. Like, you can almost always tell when somebody makes something and their heart isn't in it. And granted, my hope is to make a living on comics and art and all that. So I'm not saying that money isn't a part of it. Although I will say comics are probably not the wisest choice for everybody. That's not the point. The point that I'm making is write something that you care about, something that you are invested in, something that's going to make you want to read the book, and something that you can later say, hey, I wrote this thing, here's what it's about. Because you're going to find yourself at a convention and somebody's going to say, hey, pitch me on this book. And if you don't give a shit about your book, I definitely won't. In the same vein, write characters that are fun to read. And I don't mean fun in the lighthearted MCU all the time making quips sense. I guess you could do that if you want to do that. I mean fun in an interesting way. Characters that mean something, that have flaws and challenges and things that are interesting to them. Learn how to write a story that you care about. It's that easy and that difficult. And my final piece of advice for writers, if you're just getting started, you're making your first comic book, have the right expectation. And this is going to sound like I'm being a dick, and I don't intend to. But most of the time, the budget for a comic book is not high enough to expect professional art. And in the same way, the budget, if an artist is hiring a writer, the budget usually isn't big enough to expect professional grade writing. So if you're just doing your first comic book, chances are the writing isn't going to be fantastic. Like, it would be really impressive if you out of the gate wrote your Watchmen, your magnum opus. Like that'd be great. I hope it happens for you, but almost no chance it will. So expect the artists you're able to find will match the budget that you're willing to give them. And don't be a dick. My biggest piece of advice for both writers and artists, but don't be a jerk. Put a post out asking for artists to work for free and expect a lot of people to really be excited to do that. Maybe you'll find somebody who's totally down to collab, but usually the people that are willing to work for free are the ones who are also just getting started. So their art won't be as good. And that's okay. Work with them. That's great. If you want to collaborate with somebody and split profits, that's great. But don't treat it like it's a favor to them. That's the thing that gets me, is the number of posts that I see that are saying, hey, I'm looking for an artist, look at all this exposure you're gonna get seen, you'll finally be published, it's gonna be amazing. And it's writers that don't know what they're doing and don't have the ability to get anybody. It's not like Image is coming to these people and saying, hey, yeah, you'll work for free, but you'll have an Image comic, which also is a bad idea, but that's not the point. Just expect that if you're not going to be able to pay an artist, you're probably not going to get a fantastic artist. Maybe you'll get lucky, but kind of I hope not, because fantastic art deserves fantastic reward. And I say art in the sense of creativity, so fantastic writing also deserves a fantastic reward. I hope that your comic makes millions of dollars, I really do, but you just can't expect that on the back end and then hope that a really great artist is going to come in and do it. Now on to some advice for artists. Don't be a shithead. Hey, it works for everybody. Artists, if you're just getting started, don't expect to make $150 a page. It's just not going to work out that way. Page rates are tough. Learning how to price your work is extremely hard. And also, it's like part of the business. Be reasonable with what you're charging and be negotiable. Be open to hearing, hey, I can't do that. Can you do this? And then if that doesn't work, whatever. Like, you can figure it out. Be willing to work with people and understand what level you're actually at, what you're bringing to the table. And also, if a writer asks you to work for free, you don't have to do it, but you don't have to be a jerk about saying no. My whole mindset when it comes to the creative landscape is just bring humility into this. You're not Jim Lee. You're not Grant Morrison. Probably. And if you are, then that still doesn't give you an excuse to just be a jerk to people. You're probably just starting out. And when you're just starting out, you're going to have days where you feel like you're better than everybody and days where you feel like you're worse than everybody, and you're probably wrong about both of those things. Another little piece of advice for artists, design characters that you want to draw over and over and over and over and over and over. And characters that you can draw over and over and over and over and over and over. Do character sheets. You don't want to be figuring out the angles of the face of your main character on the page. You want to know, generally speaking, what the planes of the face are going to look like and how you can keep them more or less the same. It's really hard to do, and it gets so tiring, and there's gonna be panels where you just don't care. And that happens. That's part of comic books. But you still gotta do it, and you gotta do it well, and you gotta put your all into it. Or you just have kind of a bad comic book. There are ways to hide some of this, but just put the work in on the front end. Design a character that you want to be drawing over and over. My comic book is about a guy with an octopus for a head. Do you know why that is? 1, because it's cool looking. 2, because it's fun to draw. Like, it's just a big, weird, gushy oval with tentacles. That's easier to draw than a human face. Not saying I don't draw the human faces around that character, but if I'm drawing a character over and over and over, I kind of found a cheat, and that, I'm not gonna lie, that was a huge part of why I wanted to end up doing this comic book, is because I get to draw this character that's relatively easy to draw. But in his design, I also worked very hard to make sure that the tentacles were expressive. They would create this kind of character around the character. He doesn't have a mouth, so you can't tell if he's smiling, but you can tell if he's shocked because all his tentacles are going, woo! It's a fun character to draw, and that's my point. Design characters that you are willing to draw. Also, my last piece of advice for artists, especially starting out, really, really, really work hard to learn the balance between perfectionism and just getting something done. I spent many years just getting something done, and those comics are truly horrible because I just wanted to get it out. I wanted to just have a comic. I cut a lot of corners. I tried to get the comic out as fast as I possibly could so that I said I have a comic book, which there are ways to do that are smart, but that comes way later in the process. On the other hand, I also did a couple of books where I worked really hard, excruciatingly hard, to get every detail exactly right. And do you know what happened to that book? I never put it out because I stopped like 6 pages in because it was way too much work. There is a middle ground. There is a balance. Your first comic in a series will always look slightly worse than your last comic in a series. That is true of every comic book that has ever been drawn by any person because we're all learning and getting better. Now, the more professional you get and the further into your career you get, the smaller that gap becomes, but it's still, unless you're, in my opinion, a bad artist who just kind of gets stuck doing what they do, you should always be trying to learn. You should always be trying to grow, and to do that, you're going to have to accept that it's going to look worse the further away you get from it. So let's say you go through all the process, you have your comic written, drawn, lettered, all of that. You are done. You have a comic book ready to go. Congratulations. Seriously, that's a huge moment. You made a comic book. That's huge. That's so much work. And you're probably kind of freaking out about next steps because what do you do? How do you get published? Where do you go? All good questions. Here's my recommendation. Pitch to all the comic book companies, as many as you can. Whatever, go into their website, figure out if they have submissions open, submit your story, put it in with your art, say, hey, I have this comic book, here it is, it's ready to go, will you publish my book? And then expect that absolutely not, there's almost no chance that they're going to. It's a crapshoot if you are the most professional artist in the world. It's a huge crapshoot if it's your first comic book. It's probably, being entirely honest with you, probably not good enough, and they probably won't accept that submission. And that's okay. That happens. I've gotten several rejections, and it hurts, but you move past it. You grow from it. You learn what you can do better, and you just try again. But it's worth a shot because you never know. Everybody has a different story, and I've heard stories where people's first comic is just all of a sudden they put it out and it's picked up by Image, and that's a beautiful thing. And why not try? It's free to give it a shot. They're not going to steal your idea. Legally, they can't. So just give it a shot. But yeah, I expect that it won't happen because it probably won't. And then if it doesn't, that's where you have a decision to make. You have some options past that. Option 1, you can trash it. You can just start over, make a new comic, and submit again. I think that sucks, but you can do that if you want to do that. If you think that it's not worth it, that's great. Option 2 kind of branches into 2 things, and it's self-publishing. So you have 2 different directions you can go with that. 1, webcomic, and that could be webtoons, that could be your own website. That's what I'm doing currently. johnbonart.com. Again, please read Edge of Bordertown. You can put it on Reddit. That's been a huge thing for me. That's what got most of the eyes on my comic, is just putting it on Reddit. You can put it anywhere. I mean, you can post it on a Facebook page, but just get it out there. Make sure people have access to it. You can charge people for it. There's ways to set up like an online store. You can go through. I'm trying to remember what that store is. What that thing is. What's that place called? There's a series of online stores that you can kind of go through for artists. I'll see if I can link them. I can't remember the name of them right now. Gumroad. I think it's Gumroad. You can go through Gumroad. You can go through Etsy. You can go through so many different places. You can set up your own online store. That probably costs more money than you want to do right now, but you could. And then just share that with all your friends and family and say, hey, I made this comic. If you want to support it, I would really appreciate it. And who knows, maybe they will. My family certainly did, and that's a weird balance of feelings because on the one hand, people are buying your comic and you love these people and that's so sweet. And on the other hand, they're going to read that thing you made and you're deeply personally connected to, and it might be bad, and what if they hate you for it? Your other option for self-publishing is to get a print run and take it to conventions. You could also do both of these at the same time if you want to. That's what I did for the first several years of comics in my career so far. My sister and I made a bunch of comics. We printed them out. Luckily, our family owned a printing business at the time, so that certainly didn't hurt. But you can go through like Kablam. You can go through, there's another Gecko something. Anyway, there's a bunch of different print sites. Find one that fits your price range. Print them out. Go to conventions. Pay the $50, whatever it is, to get a table. Just local, small ones. Start small. Sell to people in your local area. I promise you, it's an experience that you will never forget and will probably scar you for the rest of your life. In many good ways and many bad ways. There are so many things that people have said to me at conventions that just cut to the bone. They cut my soul out of my body and they made me just openly weep. But I grew from that, and that's a good thing somehow. You also get to see people really support you and enjoy what you're doing, which is a beautiful thing. It's kind of a shredder though for your emotions. So just get ready for that, because some people are going to be nice and other people also exist. So you just have to prepare yourself for that. Again, art's a weird thing. When you put it into the world, there's going to be people that don't like it, and that's going to hurt at first. And then eventually you'll start to learn, I don't really care if you don't like it, because I like it and I'm proud of it. So doesn't really matter to me. Again, don't be a dick though. Like, there's such a balance to all of this. The point is, those are kind of your options. You can put it out free, you can sell it digitally, you can sell it physically, you can combine however you want, but know that you made a comic, and hopefully you'll find that experience inspiring enough to make more comics. Or you'll find that experience just degrading and horrible enough that you've decided maybe comics aren't for you. I hope that doesn't happen, but I wouldn't blame you. One last piece of advice, and it's going to sound like I'm being kind of a downer, and I don't intend to be. Don't expect your book to succeed. Just don't set that expectation for yourself, because then you're going to set this... Well, let me rephrase this. I say you. I should not have expected my comic book to succeed immediately. I shouldn't have. I set this expectation, even putting out Bordertown, something I was very proud of, something I am still extremely proud of. I think it's a really good comic book. I set the expectation that it would just go out on the internet for free and people would instantly love it so much that they couldn't help themselves but to support me, send a bunch of money to my Patreon, just randomly Venmo me. I expected millions of people to get their eyes on this comic and share it with all their friends and family and just love it so much that they couldn't stop talking about it. And then Netflix would just have to come talk to me because look at this huge fan base. It'd be stupid not to. Don't expect that, because that's straight up idiotic. I had set such a high marker for what I was expecting, what I wanted to come from this comic book, and I didn't even know that I had, because if you had asked me, I would have said logically, no, of course not. It's going to be a slow build. People won't notice it for a while. But internally in my heart, I was not feeling that way. And the way that I know that is I posted it, and a week later, I had a pretty strong bout of depression because it didn't all work out for me immediately. So just don't expect that to happen. Know that you're not going to be instantly overnight successful, because no one is instantly overnight successful. If you are, that would be horrible, because the expectation for what you're going to do next would be so high, and you might not be able to live up to it. Slow build is a good thing. It's good to slowly start to gain traction, see more eyes, get more followers, get more people that care about your work, more people reading your comics, in a direction and a speed that is attainable to continue growth and making your comic books. So learn from me. Don't be an idiot and expect that your book is going to instantly break a bunch of records, because that's just not going to. And when you set that high an expectation, you miss when people do read your comic and do care about it, because they're not a million people, they're just one. You miss the beauty of the fact that someone random on the internet just read your comic and liked it. That's insanity. That's mind-blowing to me. The fact that anyone has read Edge of Bordertown and cared about it enough to comment or like or go out of their way to say, hey, this is a good thing, it's mind-blowing. And I don't think I would have seen that if it had been the first thing that happened. The fact that it almost nothing happened, almost nobody saw it, and then it has slowly built into a thing that people have started to care about, makes it much more special to me. So after watching all of this, if you're still thinking about making a comic book, please do it. Please make your comic. Write, draw, create something. Make it. Put it into the world. Tell me about it. Comment down below. What comic are you working on? Here's so much about people's creative lives, and there is never too many comics. It's impossible. I've never once read a really great creator-owned comic and thought, gosh, I want less of those to exist. So make your comic. And if it sucks, make another one and hope it's a little bit better. Thank you for watching this video and checking out my channel. If you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on comics, movies, TV shows, anything of the like, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and please do comment down below what you're working on right now. I'd love to hear about it. Or do none of those things, because I am not your dad.